All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will start going over review with assessment 1, which is in your number and number sense. It is your non-calculator portion. I will be working each problem and doing some discussion as we go through. So if you miss these problems, these are the ones you need to focus on. Starting with problem 1. Directions say select the letter that best answers the question. You may not use a calculator. 2 1/2 divided by 1/4. Well, we need to remember these are mixed numbers times a fraction. We do not multiply mixed numbers by fractions. We must first turn them into improper fractions. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5 over 2. Having that divided by 1/4. Do we divide fractions? No, we use our trick called KFC, where we keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, and change the sign. Keeping K, flipping F, C, changing the multiply or the divide to a multiply. Multiplying fractions ain't no problem. Top times top, bottom times bottom. Simplifying the fraction, how many 2's are in 20? 10, for an answer choice of 10. Number 2, 3 1/3 times 1 1/2. They are mixed numbers. We do not multiply mixed numbers. We must turn them into improper fractions. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10 over 3 times 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3 over 2. Multiplying, it already is a multiplication problem. So multiplying fractions ain't no problem. Top times top, bottom times bottom. 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times 2 is 6. And then I must simplify the fraction. How many 6's are in 30? A total of 5 for a best answer choice of 5. Which expression is equivalent to 1/2 divided by 2/3? We do not divide fractions. We multiply by the reciprocal using the trick KFC again. So this problem becomes 1/2 times, flipping the second problem, 3 over 2. Multiplying fractions ain't no problem. Top times top, bottom times bottom. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 2 is 4 for an answer of 3/4. But look, I didn't look at that clearly. It just wanted us to show this part. So 1/2 divided by 2/3 becomes 1/2 times 3/2. Best answer choice is B. Going on to the second page, looking at order of operations, remembering GEMDAS as our order of operations, where we use groupings. Exponents, multiply and divide, and on those, remember they must be in order from left to right. Then we add and subtract also in order from left to right. So the question says, which step contains the first mistake? Well, you go through the person's work and you look. The first thing they do on the top is they say the parentheses, which is a grouping. 2 plus 3 is 5. 2 times 5 to the second power over 5. So far, so good. Move on to step 2. Next, we have the grouping or the exponent. So you take 5 squared. Is 5 squared 10? Bells and whistles should be going off at that point because 5 squared is not 10. 5 squared is 25. 5 times 5, not 5 times 2. So the error becomes evident in step 2. Number 5, simplifying. Again, using GEMDAS. Are there any groupings? There are not. What comes next? Exponents. 2 squared, 4. Copy down the rest of the problem. Are there any more exponents? No, there's not. Is there multiplication or division? There is. There's multiplication. We look from left to right. That is the first problem we come to. 4 times 2 is 8. Copying down the rest of the problem. Any more multiply or divide? No. Now I have to look for my add and subtract. again in order from left to right. So the first thing I come to is a subtraction problem. 15 minus 4 gives me 11. Copying down the rest of the problem, 11 plus 8 yields 19, 19 being my best answer choice. Number 6, which operation is performed last when simplifying this expression? Well, the first thing we have that we do is our groupings, so that's not it. So then we look for exponents. Are there any exponents? Nope. Then we look for multiplication and division in order from left to right. So if I did this, 5 plus 2 is 7, minus 1 is 6, if I had that answer. And remembering, that's in parentheses, so that means it is a multiplication problem when we're at this point. So now we have division, left to right. We do division first, and then finally we would have an answer here, and finally we would do our multiplication. So the last thing we're doing in this problem is multiplication. Number 7, which of the following is equivalent to 60%? Well, the thing we need to remember is that percents are out of 100. So if we have 6 out of 100, that is 6%. If we have 3 over 5, is 5 hundredths? No. So we write it to an equivalent fraction where 100 is our denominator. 5 times 20 is 100. 3 times 20 is 60. So if we write 60 over 100 as a percent, you get 60%. Looking at this one just to check, decimal to percent, we move the D to P in the alphabet, so we have to go to the right. Always 2 spaces, so you end up at 6%. And 60 at 6% to change it to a percent. Decimal at the end, 1, 2, filler zeros, that would be 6,000%. So which of those is equivalent to 60%? Would be letter B, 3/5. Continuing on with assessment 1, number 8. It says select all numbers that are greater than 2/3. Well, the first thing on this that you should do is you should put 2/3 in every form that you have. You have decimal format, you have percent format, you have fraction format. Here it is as a fraction, 2/3. As a decimal, it is decimal 66 repeating. As a percent, it is 66 2/3%. So if you have those equivalencies right there where you can look at them, then it will be much easier to determine which of these numbers are greater than. So is 66% greater than 66 2/3%? No. On these, you do a comparison. 5/9 to 2/3. Use your butterfly method. 9 times 2 is 18. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 is smaller than 18, therefore 5/9 is smaller than 2/3, so it's not greater either. 7/10, 2/3, butterfly method. 10 and 2 is 20. 3 and 7 is 21. 21 is greater than 20, so this fraction is bigger than 2/3. This is a yes. 69%, is it more than 66 2/3%? Yes, it is. Decimal 7/5 compared to decimal 6/6. Decimal 7/5 is larger than decimal 66. If you look at them as whole numbers, 75 is bigger than 66. So this again is a yes. Decimal 66, same number of decimal places after, so now you can look at them as whole numbers. 28 is not bigger than 66, so that is a no. So your number choices or letter choices, V, Y, W. V, Y, W, C is your best choice. Number 9, which inequality statement is false? False. So you're looking at a fraction compared to a percent here. So you need to go one way or the other. They need to be the same before you can make a comparison. So if you're looking at 7/10 and you want to make it a percent, you simply write an equivalent fraction with it over 100. How do I get from 10 to 100? times 10, and 7 times 10 is 70, which is 70%. Is 70% less than 75%? Yes, it is. So that is not a false statement. So that is not your answer. 85%. Changing decimal 75 to a percent. We move the decimal place 2 places to the right and put our percent sign. 88% is greater than 75%. Yes, it is. So that is not a false answer. 2/3 and 66%. Well, we should have 2/3 committed to memory by now as being 66 and 2/3%. Is 66 and 2/3% larger than 60%? Yes, it is. So that is not a false answer. So by happenstance, you know that D is going to be the answer. But when we talked about fractions that have denominators of 9, we talked about the fact that their decimal places are repeating of whatever the numerator is. Anytime you have something over 9, 1/9 is decimal 1/1, repeating. 2/9 is decimal 2/2, repeating. 3/9 is decimal 3/3, repeating, etc., etc. So then if I look at this decimal, it has 2 decimal place values. If I make this one have 2 decimal place values, 44 is less than 50. So 44 is not greater than 50, or 4/9 is not greater than 0.5. So this is a no. So your false answer is letter D. Which set of numbers is in order from greatest to least? Well, we have a mixture of things here. We have decimals, we have fractions, and we have percents. So if we take each one, we see that decimal 25, we should know 1/8 as a decimal. That by now should be committed to memory as to decimal 125. And 50%, of course, is decimal 5. So we can either compare them that way, or you can change them all to percents. 25 as a percent, decimal 25 as a percent is decimal 25 as a percent is 25%. Decimal 125 is 12.5%. Decimal 5 is 50%. So if these were in order, least to greatest, here it is, least to greatest, which is the smallest? 25%, 12.5%, or 50%? 12.5%, which goes with 1/8, 25%, which goes with decimal 25, and finally 50%, which goes with 50%. So then which one of those phrases are orders are 1/8, decimal 25, and 50%? Letter D shows us in order. They must all be the same thing before we can make a comparison. All right, we're going to stop there. Momentarily, I will have a second video on assessment 2, but that is assessment 1. Find anything that you are missing, go to the particular place that you are, find the ones you've missed, and make your corrections, as well as listening to the tutor session on that. Thanks.